And we're live already, but I want to do this first. Hang on, I'm going to roll down here. It's just me and Chris to start with. Hopefully the rest of them will be here in a minute. If anybody hasn't found him already, somebody go find Ron Brown, drag him in here. Oh, I knew it. There he is. Boom. And with that, John's in here, Chris is in here, I'm in here.
Oh my God.
Boom. I'm getting audio feedback.
Audio feedback. Could it be from me?
Let me see. Who is it? Is
Could be
it
from me. I don't know, man. Let's see.
I can still hear
it. You're in my earbuds, so I don't know where that would be coming from.
Wait. Okay, Chris muted himself.
All right, talk. But you see hear anything?
Wait. Okay, can you hear us now?
I don't know.
No, it's Chris. Wait.
Yeah, there must be weird. Talk testing 1, 2, 3. What do we got?
Evening, Bill, John.
I'm fine. I don't hear any feedback.
I'm good.
How could it be my end?
Well, it's probably bouncing around that hollow head.
Do you have the YouTube of the show open in the background?
Yeah, thank you.
There you go.
There you go. That's why John's here. That's why John's here. Part of why John's here. I was like tripping, and y'all were like, I'm not having any troubles, man. What are you? Okay. Anyway, everything's cool. Let me go back through the top here. As you can see, Mike was in first. Night Train was here. Then Matt was in second, even though I said second. I told him I didn't really count. Fly Guy Merrill was here. Blind Neil. And Matt again. Blind Neil. Me saying something. Ray Kelly, good to have you here, sir. Matt's talking again. More Ray, more Matt, more Ray. Me saying something. Matt saying something. Johnny Drone Flyer. Night Train again. Matt, Johnny, Matt. Artco's here. Good to see you, sir. As I caught, wait a minute, I see Michael Wright. Is there anybody that I missed that I didn't roll through here after my little chaos of where I lost my mind for a moment? Okay, we're good. Okay, we're about caught up. So basically what I wanted to do tonight, okay, I can see Ron messaged on Facebook. Running a little late, should be in about 15 minutes. Ron's going to be in about 15 minutes. We haven't heard from Ethan yet. Hopefully Ethan will be in directly, because what I wanted to do, John has the most in-depth information about remote ID. And everybody knows I tend to fly from the cuff. And Ethan is our in-house 107 pilot. So I figured it would be best to bounce questions off of both of them, as John was the most versed, and Ethan would have the most information about how that would apply on 107 and getting your 107. So with that being said, John, is there any major developments in the remote ID area that you would like to bring to the point?
So there's a few things that we're gonna. Oh, you don't need to make me big. So there's a few things. I was gonna say I don't have anything to present yet. I have to get the Federal Register up. I have to get the document up. I have to pull it up. So there are a few things that are a problem in the new regs. There's some very concerning wording, and Ethan will understand what I'm talking about. You know, we went back and forth with this in the chat, and we're going to talk about some of the implications of these wordings could be. If there isn't some clarification, it could be very bad news, especially for FPV. So let me just pull up the Federal Register here so we can get the stream going. 1 second here. I had it saved. I don't know where it went.
That's okay. We'll get to it. We're not professional.
Okay, and I will point out to you guys what has struck out as rather problematic.
And something I heard you were talking about on Drone Nation, I believe, you're talking about it seems like an incomplete document.
Right. And well, Bill, you've said this before when we've discussed this, that it feels like this whole thing was just written by a whole bunch of different people and
And then they
just
stapled the papers together.
kind of piece together. Yeah, and I completely agree with you on that one.
That's what I was telling him. It looked like 10 or 12 people got together and they said, okay, you handle this, you handle this, you handle this, you handle this. And then they all handed in their papers and they just went, okay, that's it.
All right, let's see if we can share this document now so we can pull it up here. Application window. Looks like it doesn't want to let me share Foxit PD. Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay. Let's get our final rule document up here so me and Ethan can start to talk about things. So,
I'm gonna get a
one
water.
of the issues with the original proposal was that for those of us that self-built our drones, it was going to be really, really hard to get our builds approved through the FAA to be able to fly them anywhere. They wanted us to go through this approval process where you had to submit your design to the FAA, and there was going to be a whole set of parameters to try to get our home-built stuff approved. And that was a total nightmare. That was going to be a total nightmare. The other thing was the whole network requirement. You no longer need a network requirement. That's been removed, thankfully. But we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that in a bit. But let me go ahead and highlight what is a problem with the solution that they came up with here. So the first, or rather the second area of remote ID, they came up with the remote ID broadcast module. So they're saying you can take a module, stick it to one of your older drones or your self-built drones that's approved by the FAA, and then that will suit as your little transponder, your little remote ID transponder. They got rid of the network stuff. They got rid of all that stuff. And now we're going to have an external module, home built, supposedly is not at risk. You can just do that and be covered. But there's a little bit of devil in some of these details for compliance. So let's take a look at the very first set of rules here. Okay. So persons can operate an unmanned aircraft equipped with a remote identification broadcast module only if, okay? Point number 5, the person manipulating the flight controls of the unmanned aircraft system must be able to see the unmanned aircraft at all times throughout the operation. Anybody who flies FPV sees the problem with that.
Yeah, that's a big change from where if you've ever, so in the 107 classes and in the 107 test, it specifically says, it talks about the pilot in command, the POC, and it specifically says that the POC does not need to be the person manipulating the sticks, and you can have spotters.
Right.
So this is interesting that they worded it explicitly like this.
Yeah, it's crazy how hyper specific that is, that the person manipulating the controls, the person on the control stick, must be able to see. Now, what do they mean by see? What do they mean by see the aircraft? That is a question a lot of people are asking. Do we go by the visual line of sight rules? Generally you would think yes. I said it. Generally you would think yes. This definitely needs to be clarified. Wouldn't you agree, Ethan? This language needs to be changed. It is scary for FPV because they're basically saying if we take this at face value, you can't fly FPV at all.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Could be down the road they might incorporate like a second add-on to it, if they have an FPV waiver or something like that. Who knows? Yeah,
but that would be a total nightmare for hobbyists. I mean, look, part of the whole reason for who's going to use this remote ID module the most, right? Like this is why this feels like such a slap in the face, especially to FPV, because most of the people who build their own drones are in FPV, home built, that kind of thing. So if we can't do FPV legally with a spotter and could be compliant with remote ID, the whole thing kind of falls apart. It really, the whole thing just kind of falls apart right there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And if this is not clarified, I'm afraid there will be less compliance even than I already think there is not going to be with all this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Clarification is always a problem.
Yeah, so it's going to be a problem.
Period.
So this is more specific to FPV, but is there anything in the recreational area that we should be worried about or concerned about or anything like that?
Well, John did send me a link yesterday that pointed out a section that, because I know there's been a few people that go back and forth about the pilot's location being broadcast, and some people said it's not, some people said it is. But if you look at the documentation, it's pretty black and white that says.
Why don't we pull that up? Give me a second here, and I will pull up the exact words and phrases of that. But yeah, you can keep elaborating on that while I pull up the wording.
It pretty much explicitly says that the pilot's location will be one of the things broadcast, and it will be available to the general public. It says it very explicitly.
Wow.
So
yeah, and it says it in more than one place.
And personally, to me, that's the biggest concern that I have, because I personally feel it's a safety issue for the pilot. Who knows? If anybody can come and harass you while you're flying, it creates an unsafe environment. So I think they definitely have to fix that. I mean, I know plenty other people have talked about it, but the general public doesn't have access to your information displayed, just from running your license plate.
So it specifically says that they will know where you're taking off from.
Yeah, it would say the information will be available to the public.
Okay, but the thing that I heard was, yes, that information would be there, but it was going to be under like a coded number, and that you would have to have access to a higher database in order to decrypt that number. But you're saying it's just going to be completely wide open, or is it so? It seems like it's completely vague.
It says it will be available to the public, to the general public. It says it.
Man.
No, it could be something difficult to get to. Like maybe you need to go on a special website. Kind of like if you do like any kind of case searches, judiciary case searches. I mean, they're available to the public too, but you got to know where to look. It could be something like that. So,
God forbid they create apps and all you have to do is report this drone.
Yeah.
Push a button.
Okay, so we're going to go over a couple pages here. So this is page number 75. And on page number 75, this is actually I believe a response to a comment, or rather a general response to commenters. And they're talking about the requirement to provide law enforcement, the general public, and other parts of the aviation community with real-time information about unmanned aircraft operations in any area which broadcast signals can be received. The broadcast will permit detection of unmanned aircraft and will permit law enforcement and the general public that receives the broadcasted message elements to have information about the unmanned aircraft location, as well as information about the control station or takeoff location. So, I know some people have been saying that only law enforcement has access to that information. That is not what we are seeing by and large, in very plain language, just from reading this document. I mean, it says it right there.
Yeah, pretty much. And to be honest with you, I think my biggest issue with, I understand broadcasting locations of the drone for safety and that kind of thing, and to have law enforcement to have access to it. But I also don't think that they should just have access to it, willy nilly. Just like, police officers aren't technically allowed to run your plate just for shits and giggles. They have to have a reason. We all know that they do it. We all know that they do it. But technically, legally, they're not allowed to. And this is what kind of way I feel about this. They shouldn't be able to pull that information or access that information out of the sky unless somebody reports it or saying, hey, there's something flying around out here, we don't know who it is, then I think they should be able to pull it up and say, okay, we know who it is, they have clearance, or we know what they're doing, so it's not an issue.
Well, the thing about it is I can see they left somebody else. The FAA, law enforcement, the general public, and other parts of the aviation community. What about 4-year-olds under the age of, or under the preschoolers under the age of 4? We might as well go ahead and give them information. I feel like they won't be left out that way. I mean, they've got everybody. It's like inclusive of everybody except minors or something. It's ridiculous how broad that field is.
Well,
So,
I think it's intentionally like that too. For say they come up with a different agency or different regulating body down the road, they could just slide that in there. So that's the whole point of it being vague, is for a good reason for them to basically tailor it however they want down the road.
Now, I've heard that in part this was really pushed for, not so much by the package delivery companies, all of them. I've heard, through the grapevine, reading through the groups, that this aspect of it was really pushed for by the national security agencies, Department of Homeland Security. Believe it or not, they are apparently really, really bothered by the fact that there could be a drone in the sky, and they don't know anything about it. That apparently really bothers the crap out of them. So the FAA, again, from what I've heard, pretty much knew that if they didn't leave that element in there, this wouldn't fly with the NSA and all of them. So that's what they say. That's why they left alone and it didn't get struck out. And I'm going to go to another section of it where, because again, this is one section, and there's contradictory things in this document, and we'll get into some of that next. So in this next page,
I always love legal loopholes.
Well, in this next area is page 113. The FAA is talking about the issue of sharing the control station location publicly. And here the FAA says again that they find that the requirement as proposed is necessary to meet the core objective of the rulemaking to promote the safety and efficiency of the airspace of the United States. So that makes 2 sections in this document. And in fact, look at this whole paragraph here, right? The inclusion of the control station location enables the RID message to create a direct link between the unmanned aircraft and its operator. I mean, this is, well, yeah, I mean, I'm all around in all the groups. I listen in on a lot of conversations. So
I know why John and Ethan are in the lead, and I'm just clicking buttons.
But anyway, yeah, look. Well, do you want to see where I really got that information from? I could show you where I actually got part of that information from. I'll pull it up after we're done with this section here. But anyway, I think you guys will find it interesting. Okay, so basically 2 sections already. Very clear to me that they want the location, the pilot location, to be in the broadcast element from these remote ID modules. That does not seem like it's going away. So if that upsets you, hate to say it, seems to be it is what it is. Ethan, what do you think?
Time to be a pirate.
All right. Yeah, I gotta get my pirate patch out. Ethan, I think that this is absolutely going to cause violence against some drone operators, unwarranted violence against drone operators. I think it'll be a matter of time that once all of this is out, somebody is going to, especially depending on how the signal ends up being possible to pick up. Like if they make it, super, super easy to access, then average Joe might take advantage of that and try to go, this is a real risk. Definitely a real risk. No privacy implications here.
Yeah, I definitely see it being more of an issue for like commercial pilots, because typically they're the ones that are more focused, on what they're doing, and they're probably not really paying attention to like who's around them. Not to mention that they're the equipment that they're going to have with them is, probably they're going to have a lot more, expensive equipment on hand. As far as like hobbyists goes, I mean, I really don't think, I mean, you're going to be breaking the law if you fly without it, but I really don't think they're going to really think that much of a big deal about it. But I'm personally more concerned about the commercial aspect of it, because it's going to be open season for anybody that wants to come and take your stuff,
Yeah, so let me try to put this up real quick. So this set of comments, and I guess let's see, how would I be able to share? I don't know if I want to switch to freaking Facebook to share this. It's sort of pain in the ass. 1 second here. Well, what I wanted to share with you was a comment by a man named Kenji Sugahara. I don't know how to say his name. He had left this comment. It's in the FPV Freedom Coalition. It was a response to a post. I want to pull it up here because I think the context of it really matters. I just don't know how.
Who's that dude from Oregon that they just put on the freaking deck?
So it's actually from him. It's actually from him, but Brendan Schulman kind of chimed in as well from DJI.
They screwed the entire hobby on the new deck too.
Right. Which is another issue. Let me see if I can share the FB tab real quick that I have up here, because I want to show you guys where I kind of found this. Okay, so this is someone who posted Bruce XJet's video about how remote ID is a total wreck. And this man, he posts, he says, unfortunately, and this is the guy who's now on the DAC. He's on the DAC now. And we'll talk about the DAC and all that in a bit. But let's see. So he says that Bruce gets it wrong. He claims that he was one of two folks on the ARC, and he mentions it was representing the hobbyists. It's not the FAA that drove these rules, but the public safety and national security agencies. He says that one of 3 work groups was dedicated to public safety. And, he's basically saying that the whole pilot location thing was because of national security agencies. And what's interesting is it's not just him that kind of says this, because if we scroll down here, Brendan Schulman, I don't want to misquote him or anything, because all he did was put a little yellow thumbs up there, pointing upward. So he's not saying anything more than that. But, what does that tell you? That, DJI's lawyer is just pointing up toward all these comments. Both of them were on the, were in the discussions regarding all this stuff. So I think that is significant. I think that's significant.
I was kind of surprised that Zoe wanted to be on there, but because I didn't think that she was really versed well enough in the field. I mean, it was cool, but I could understand the other gentleman in there. But
we'll get into who's in the DAC, who's in the Drone Advisory Committee. But very disappointing that Dave Messina did not make it.
Yeah,
very disappointing, and in fact, extreme underrepresentation for hobbyists in the community. Yeah, so, those 2 people, okay, God, Slide Guy, just cut me a break.
He's fit up your asshole.
He is. He's just going to bust my balls all night long. All night long. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting that, Kenji posted that, and then Brendan Schulman from DJI kind of gave him the, that's it. That's it. So, and now Brendan Schulman has nothing to do with the DAC, which is pretty sad.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Pretty amazing, right? The company that has probably the most hobby drones in the United States now has absolutely nothing to do with the Drone Advisory Committee. But I guess we could all kind of see that coming as well with the recent entity list ban and everything else.
Yeah,
the sky will be more and more divided as 90%. 95% Amazon highway. Okay, well, let's not go there yet. Let's let them finish.
We'll save that for later.
Yeah, let's okay.
But listen, those are 2 people who, they were on the committee, and we're just talking about the pilot location thing, right?
Yeah.
That's why that came to pass. It wasn't wasn't necessarily the Amazon guys. It was national security who's also, I guess, crapping their pants about drones. And it sounds plausible to me. I mean, doesn't it sound plausible to you guys that the NSA and
the more I
crapping their pants about it?
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I could understand why it would bother the hell out of them. Yeah. I hate to say it, but yeah.
I still don't understand why it has to be available to the general public. Readily available. I don't understand
because then you're going to create a panic. You're going to create the situation for a panic. It's like you got these people go, oh, this drone's not supposed to be here. It's not supposed to be here. And then it's got this on it. It's got that on it. I can see something weird. And then they start calling in people. And then before they can tell them that it's got clearance and is legally there, you got a panic going on. You got too many people going crazy and one pilot beat to death.
Yeah.
Negative.
I mean, instead of like that, what they got going on, I'd rather you just have just get Lance approval to fly, even in Class G airspace. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it's really easy. It's so easy to do,
Yeah.
And so if there's any question, they just, access that network and say, oh, that's so-and-so. That would have been so much cheaper than having all this broadcast nonsense.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this is the FAA's answer, which is absolutely laughable. The FAA emphasizes this was their answer, right? Some commenters raised the issue that availability of this information would put pilots at risk.
I'm just wondering if I broker a fee from whatever the hell they're talking about. I'm like, should my wife be on with me? Check your message. I'm like, I think I should get a fee if we got some services going on here, guys. I'm just this little thing here.
Yeah, I love how they say they acknowledge it, but there's always there's already regulation to, prevent people from interfering with you, which, that's going to stop somebody that's going to cause you problems.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm going to go to the community outreach.
Yeah, you're going to shout at them and say it's a felony to mess with me right now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's going to work great. And I'm going to reach out to the community when somebody is breathing down my neck for flying. I mean, like, it is this is totally unrealistic. Like, that is so far removed from reality for them to even suggest that. It's not even funny. In fact, how often does anyone even get in trouble for shooting down a drone?
That's kind of what I was thinking when this all come about. What about the people that do shoot them down?
Yeah. I don't think a lot of those people have been prosecuted to the max.
Nothing that happens to them.
It's a registered aircraft.
Right.
Boom.
Yeah, nothing happens to them.
But yet nothing happens to them. We hear, oh, it's a felony, but then when anything actually goes, when everything actually comes up, I've not heard of anybody really getting the full arm of the law slapped on them for shooting down somebody's drone.
Yep, I've
not heard about it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, that's not going to work. That's not going to work.
Well, legally, because of all this stuff has been documented. I mean, if you did have enough money and say, something did happen, you technically could sue the FAA because of this, because this issue was brought up and they explicitly went against it. So
Big Brother's gonna be tough to sue.
Yeah, and it'll be a lot of money, and then I guess you're gonna have to say what damages did you incur. I guess it depends on what happened, right?
Well, physical and property theft, yeah, and not only it sets a precedence that you're vulnerable in this.
Oh wow! Read this.
Happened in Germany, and the judge decided the shooter was allowed to. See, that's interesting. See, Type Wolf in the United States, it is on the books considered a felony. It's a federal crime, I believe, to shoot down any of our drones because it is considered aircraft. Because shooting at an aircraft is against the law. Oh, Geeks Mono, what's going on, man?
Yeah, it's a felony. Yeah,
they're making us register it like it's a November Tango 998.
Yeah, right.
What's the difference?
That's what she should ask for now and then number.
Which is kind of where I see the RID coming in. They already treat it like an aircraft. Now they really want to treat it like an aircraft.
Yep.
Yeah, and so they also struck down, by the way, encryption of the broadcast elements because someone suggested, if it was encrypted, then law enforcement would be able to have a receiving device to be able to decrypt it, and then that data would stay safe. Right here, they actually strike down encryption. The FAA does not intend to limit who can receive the broadcast messages, and allowing encryption of certain message elements would limit who can receive the broadcast messages only to those with the capability to decrypt them. So they actually really discussed this. It was suggested, well, we can encrypt the pilot location and then only let law enforcement have that, and then the general public could have your digital license plate to report to law enforcement, because that would have been a reasonable ish suggestion to me, right? Broadcast your FAA number on your drone, but keep everything else private so that only law enforcement could get to it. Nope, they are saying absolutely not right here.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that have said that won't happen or really missed all this stuff because it says it's pretty clear what they plan on doing.
Yeah. Like I said, I could be missing something, but we've just gone through multiple sections here about the pilot's location. So if you saw something that said to cheer that the pilot location didn't need to be revealed, only law enforcement can get to it, put away your victory flags. Hello, Ron. What's going on, man?
Hello, John. Hello,
Hey,
everybody.
Ron.
Sorry, apologize for being late. I go over here. You're having a good conversation today, so continue on.
Don't let it happen again.
Chris, I got a note from the teacher.
So Ron.
What color paper is it on?
Oh. All right. Let's roll back.
Okay, so Ron, I'll let you know what we got going on here. We've got we're talking about the pilot location stuff, and what we've pretty much stated is that the pilot location is going to be known to the general public. This document says it on more than one place, and they have discussed it, and they absolutely do want it that way. That doesn't seem like it's going to change.
But what we don't know is the mechanics of it.
Well, yeah, we don't know the type of technology that's going to be put on the drone that will broadcast it, but they definitely want it to be available to the general public. And Ron, how do you feel about the pilot location being available to the general public? And how do you feel that any Joe, Schmo, Harry, and Dick can just get your pilot location?
I mean, I have the same fears that everybody else does. People that hate drones coming after you, people want to steal your stuff coming after you. But I mean, I'm lucky. I fly at pretty remote locations. Usually, last times I'm flying, there's nobody anywhere near me or whatever. So, I mean, it bothers me from just just from the. Again, this is a situation, but for me, I don't think it would be a big hindrance to me because I rarely fly in areas where there's anybody.
Yeah, I can understand that. Just on a principle.
Yeah, principle.
I can't
I'm upset on the principle, but I don't think it'll have a great effect on my flying. But again, the principle really worries me. It really does.
I'll say this: when I fly FPV, generally speaking, if I'm in an area that there might be some people, like a park or something like that, people are going to be able to find me. Like me broadcasting where my pilot location is, it's pretty obvious where I am if anybody wants to come talk to me. So for the most part, something like that wouldn't bother me if I was flying FPV. It's really going to be a non-issue for close range FPV, but I will say, for flying like the Mavic Pro, if you're flying decently far out somewhere, it could cause a problem. It absolutely could cause a problem. And I'm not saying fly beyond visual line of sight. I'm just saying fly out somewhere.
And John, isn't it true that the hardware that's we're going to put on the drones to do this tracking? Well, what's the name of the device?
Okay, we don't know.
Remote ID. Let me know my Steve remote ID thing. I think the mechanics that I read of it's all going to show the location you took off from. So if you chose to walk, a couple blocks away from where you took off, it's going to show the location of where you took off at. So you could in a limited way, somewhat hide your location and then reset your home point for a return to home plane if you're flying a camera drone. Am I reading that correctly, John?
Wow. Actually, that's a good question about the camera drone. Like, if you land somewhere and then take off,
I think it's going to broadcast your home point. That's what I think. So if you reset the home point, it's going to broadcast that location.
Okay, so
almost sounds like a workaround in a way, because if I fly out and then land somewhere and then launch again, that's going to reset my home point. Now, you could argue that you're operating outside of the rules by doing that, but
no, I think it's going to broadcast that new spot. That's what I think it's going to do.
Well, I mean,
some of the DJI drones, you can reset the home point in the air. You know what I mean? And I think it's going to broadcast that location. That's what I think it's going to do.
Maybe so you can't do that.
Reset your home point to 200 feet in the air.
Yeah, that would be great. Oh my God! Yeah,
now the ones that you just hook on, like you attach to the drone, I don't think they'll work like that. But I think you physically have to hit a button on it and saying "start flight now" or something.
Yeah.
Who knows how it's going to work? I'm not quite sure, but.
Sam Burns is saying it'll be like a license plate. Only authorities can get the info. No, Sam Burns, we're actually discussing that right now.
No.
You might want to rewind and look at what we went over, because
it's actually written in the document.
Multiple different places. I do believe there's been some misinformation spread around this.
It explicitly says in several places it will be available to the general public.
In fact, let me go scroll up again right here, and here, let's just highlight it. The inclusion of the control station location, and right here, commenter suggested it only be available to law enforcement, and the FAA does not intend to limit who will receive the broadcast messages.
Oh, Dave.
Okay.
They even admit that many of the commenters suggest it's a safety issue, and they're like, nah.
Yes, exactly. And Sam, we'll go over this because we did have some new people come in to the chat. Let's go to up here again, and this is on page 113. Now we'll go to another page regarding the broadcast right here, page 362. The broadcast will permit detection of unmanned aircraft and will permit law enforcement and the general public who will receive those broadcast message elements to have information about the aircraft location, as well as information about the control station or takeoff location. So very, very clear. They're very crystal clear in this document that pilot
dead
location.
right, man. He's dead right. They put that control station bullshit in there so that each time you reset that home point, they can tag it.
Yep, exactly.
That's why they said or takeoff point or takeoff location. So now it makes no difference.
That's right.
You can't move your home point.
They got you, Ethan. They got you.
He was dead right. He's more.
You were right.
It's like that's written.
The only thing you could do is like basically take off somewhere, drive somewhere else, fly it with you, and just do whatever it takes to make sure it doesn't return to home. Because the DJI drones, you can set them up so if you lose link, it doesn't return to home.
Correct. Right. And if you are flying legal within line of sight and all that, whatever, it's not that big of a deal to fly back to you every time. Well, even if you lose line of sight, we all know how to use the map feature on the DJI drones to fly it back to you in the map. You don't actually have to
Sam Burns is right. Sam Burns is right that you don't get the person's name. That's correct. But I consider my pilot location personal information. Yeah, exactly. If we don't consider the pilot's location at the time of the flight private or personal information, then yes, they don't get your name. They don't get your name. They don't get your address. Any of that other stuff. They can only read your, I guess, FAA number. But
Well, John, let me just walk down the process of them trying to find your location. So I think somebody's put up there that they said you could get it on your phone. So I'm guessing they'll need some sort of an app. Maybe the FFA, maybe they have their own app. Maybe they'll make a special app for this. But then, okay, they get this app made where you can see the location of the drone, but you'll probably have to, like everything else, you have to sign up for I mean, not the drone flyer. The person that wants to know the location will have to sign up, give email, give their address, and give all this information to be able to use this app to see where you're flying. And then if they use that app to figure out your location and they come and do damage to you, that can be tracked from the app, so they'll know who accosted you by using the app to find you. You see where I'm getting? It may be some accountability on the other end.
Are you
Look,
what Sean
they'll have to find the person that accosted you.
Look what Sean just said. Location of operator, aircraft, intended route, etc., is all standard info to be released in manned aviation. So we need to get used to it. This will happen worldwide.
That's a shame, but probably not untrue.
Okay, well, if a 747 flies over my house, where do I go to find out who's flying that 747 over my house?
Actually, I think you can.
You can actually. There's an app that tracks all the planes in most real time. I think it's 15 minutes delay. I think there's a 15-minute delay on that data.
There's an app called Radar 24 that tells you who owns the aircraft, where it's coming from, where it's going, but it doesn't have the info of the pilots on it, and it doesn't have like the personal manifest. It doesn't have the manifest on it of who's on that airplane. It just tells you the information of that flight.
Right.
But no personal information now.
You can ask your telephone what planes are overhead right now.
Yeah.
And it'll pull it up.
Did you see this one, John? If you're going to use it for professional work, you have to have a module. But we're thinking that they'll probably upgrade these and stuff.
That is also correct. So this is a really good point that Placid here is bringing up. So some people are thinking, well, I'm just going to run to the Mavic Mini and I will never have to use remote ID. Well, if you do want to do any kind of commercial work with your drones, commercial work requires the remote ID or a remote ID module. That means that, just to put it into perspective, any weight drone, if I want to do commercial work with this, hypothetically speaking, this needs remote ID. Yep, this little whoop needs remote ID. Now, how is that going to work? I don't know. You'd be lucky to lift much of anything with this thing, but that's just the way it is. So, Placid here brings up an absolutely great point.
Yep. Now, somebody else did say earlier that they're saying we need to get used to it. Regular manned aviation, they broadcast this information. But here's the biggest difference between besides the obvious with manned aviation and remote aviation is that those pilots and those aircraft, when they're operating, they're basically, you can't get to them. And also when they're on the ground with their aircraft, they're in a secure location. Almost every airport is considered secure. They have fences, there's keyed access. The general public doesn't have access to the aircraft. And in this situation, you're explicitly showing the pilot's locations.
Right, and also
everybody.
I believe that this information is on a serious delay as well, right? But the general public can access, because I believe that flight radar thing is on at least a 10 or 15-minute delay. Is that correct?
No, it's pretty real time.
I thought it was on a delay.
I've tested it before in Baltimore, and it's pretty right on the money.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know that. I thought there was a delay.
Yeah, it's when I first started using it, I was just like, I can't believe I have access to this. This is crazy.
That's pretty wild. That is pretty wild.
But
that's a great point. Airports are secured places. Like, you can't even get to a friggin' plane without going through tons of security. So it's really not necessarily the same thing. It's not.
So if you could fly your drone from a secure location, whatever secure location means, for you, then you would have no worries. I don't know, but in a gated community, I don't know, something with walls and.
Okay, flight radar is live. Did not realize that. Sorry.
Yeah, I just think it creates a huge safety issue for the pilots. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, I think that's everyone's concern. Everyone who hears about the pilot location being transmitted has a problem with it for the most part. For that, nobody wants anybody to pick that up and then go and harass the pilot, especially while they're flying. Right, that's a safety risk in and of itself. To have somebody come and start harassing you while you're trying to fly.
Oh yeah.
Well, John, what do you think will be the biggest risk? Do you think it'll be what you're saying there, anti-drone people that want to come harass you, or people with bad intentions of stealing your equipment? Which one do you see as the biggest fear?
I think the biggest fear would be people who don't like your drone for unreasonable, reasons and want to just come and break your balls about it. That's really where it's going to be. Yeah, there is that theft argument, but I don't know that's a big one.
How much did it cost? How high can you go? That's probably 90% of the questions.
Yeah,
that's why I think commercial. If you're a commercial, and I don't know, is it going to broadcast that you're flying 107? Who knows? But if you're a 107 pilot, you're going to, most people have multiple drones. Maybe they have some camera equipment, and anybody that knows anything about theft, electronics are hot items because
I did not know that flight radar was real time. We did touch on that. That was my bad. I did not know flight radar was real time, but still it's I don't think that our drone should have to match that.
I also think this, any kind of criminal that get wind of this is what's coming down the pipe, you're creating an opportunity for them, because right now nobody knows if you're flying or not. They don't know where you are. If they see it, if they just happen to see it in the air, the way, it's very difficult for them to track you down to come, say they wanted to do harm or steal your stuff. Now, all I got to do is drive around with this app open and they could just look for, stuff of opportunity. So.
Yeah, that is interesting, especially depending on the nature of the app and how easy it will be for the general public to use and access, and if you can just drive around and see the drones that are flying in the air, like you can see Wi-Fi connections.
Yeah,
that's scary. That would be scary for drone pilots.
Yeah.
Something else too, there's a lot of people who are talking about that they think it's going to be difficult to enforce a lot of these rules. And Chris and I were talking before we went live, and let me get my face back on camera here. We were talking before we went live, and I was telling him, I was like, no, it's not going to be that big a deal. You add a couple of people to your local law enforcement, a couple of young, fresh out of the academy, go-getters, and they say, all right, we're going to start you off on UAV policing. And they're going to do it, and they're going to be ball busters about it. And there are going to be 2 or 3 of these in every community. We all know we have them. We all know they're there, and we know how eager they are to please. So it's not going to be hard to enforce it. Don't kid yourself. Don't think it's not going to be enforced, because it is. Because it's not going to take that much extra money to employ these 2 officers per unit to do just this specific thing. And that's all they're going to do. And they're going to be able to harass and pester the shit out of you until we finally get bored with it and leave. That's my opinion, because I don't think it's going to be that difficult to add on a couple more officers and give them a hard ass for drones.
I take an actually different approach to that one. I actually think that enforcement will be a lot harder. It's not that easy to just add officers, especially to a lot of cities. The
remote idea, if anything, will make it easier for them to enforce stuff.
Yeah, that I understand, but I still think that enforcement overall is going to be a challenge, because the police have better things to do than mess with drone operators all day long. For the most part, I feel that I could be wrong, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree with John. That's going to have to be a real low crime neighborhood for the police to have time to focus in on drone flights.
Exactly. I don't think that it's what they're going to be really interested in doing. Certainly what Bill says could be true. There might be somebody who comes in new and has really nothing to do maybe in a town and wants to make some catches. But I just don't know if that's really as bad as it might sound.
Especially if you live in a town, like it's a town totally Class G airspace.
Right.
It's really going to be hard to get them on the finer points. Like, line of sights would be always.
Wait. You're
Exactly. Just because there's a drone flying doesn't mean that the police have a
Hold
catch.
on. Within 3 years, you won't have your local neighborhood G airspace to fly in.
I mean, that's a whole other argument. That's a whole other argument. Yeah. But even if it is Class D or G or whatever, just because a police officer sees a drone is flying doesn't mean what you're doing is against the law. Doesn't mean that they know what's, and this is a funny thing too. And I think this will be a problem for under 250 grams, which could be a problem for under 250 gram models. Will under 250 gram drones now possibly be seen as rogue drones by police officers who might be looking for this stuff? Because you can't really tell what the weight of a drone is, especially from 100, 200 feet in the air. I mean, you see it, but you don't know what size it is, what its weight is.
Let me go 3 years down the road here. Get called, Bill. Okay, 3 years down the road. I'm just go with me here. The Amazon delivery drones are out there, and they're delivering packages to your neighborhood. Well, what if somebody who hates drones gets that app out, right? And they see all these Amazon drones delivering packages in the neighborhood. If they call the local policeman up and say, "Would you come down here? There's a bunch of drones flying over my house," and he comes down and sees the Amazon drones, what's that policeman going to do? Is he going to go arrest somebody at Amazon? What's he going to?
I bet you they're exempt. I bet you the Amazon, FedEx, you won't be able to find jack about them.
Well, because those drones will be operated under a different set of rules just because of how big they are to begin with. They don't even operate under our rules.
So I've got the solution to everything. You just need an Amazon sticker and put it on the side of your drone.
There you go.
Yeah, we solved all the problems. We can go home now.
They look up, that's Amazon. It's okay.
Let's start building mock FedEx, Amazon, and UPS drones.
And Ethan, also, let's make up a mock little empty package that weighs nothing underneath it or whatever. It looks, just it's nothing in there, but it looks like they're delivering a package. But actually, you're getting some great footage.
So Type Wolf brings up an interesting comment here. The neighbors and chasers of drones will. Oh, okay, interesting.
Very.
See, I did not know that. I was going to say, Type Wolf brings up a good comment here. Your neighbors and chasers of drones are going to be the ones to send reports to law enforcement, and there's the story. We'll start. Certainly, I think that, people already have that issue now, but generally it's with your immediate neighbors. If your immediate neighbors are not happy with your drone, then they're going to call the cops on you every time you fly. I actually got a comment once on one of my videos because I was flying with my neighbor who I gifted one of my toy drones. We were both out flying together, and they said, "That's so cool, man, because every time I fly my drone, my neighbors just call the cops on me." And it's like, yeah, that's already a problem. But with remote ID, now your problem is not just your immediate neighbors, it's everywhere out that you decide to fly from that point. So it's not good.
I was making a joke earlier with Chris too about how if you hadn't never made that toilet paper delivery drop video, they never would have thought of drone delivery.
It's all your fault.
So Michael Riker brings up a good comment here. Can anyone describe the monetary benefit for LEOs to enforce FAA rules? So yeah, that's an interesting comment because what are they going to do? They're going to write me a ticket? I guess that they would only really be able to write me a ticket for what? Flying a drone? When are they going to make money in their locality? is that going to count toward toward any ticket quotas that they may have?
Well,
I'm
take
sure
the place
that
being
we're going to
tickets,
put fines on it.
but, right? How's that going to why are they going to be encouraged to do it unless they have some kind of real complaint?
That's a really good comment. What is really the incentive for a law enforcement officer to roll up and bother somebody who's flying a drone, or war drive per se, and look for drone operators that might not be flying by line of sight, yeah.
I mean, the only encouragement would be if an officer obviously sees somebody flying a drone over a group, groups of people, big groups of people, like down here at the shore, like the next beach town ever be Ventnor City. They don't allow drones flying on the beach in between the holidays, Memorial Day and Labor Day, because they're afraid of people flying over, the drone flying over all those people sitting on the beach during the day. And that's a reasonable law.
Yeah. Yeah, and Typo was saying that it meant every neighbor on the route, not only the ones at your home that are already pissed off. Yeah, that's what I was trying to touch on. That we do have the problem that in your immediate area you have to deal with neighbors that are pissed off. But if your neighbors to the left, to the right, a little bit of you are all cool with it, then once you launch and you go out, you're generally not going to have a problem. If you're 100 or 200 feet away and you're 300 feet up in the air and somebody is messing around on their phone, and let's say they can receive that signal, right? And they just want to break nuts. They can call the cops and say, a drone's spying on me. It says it's over my house. And then it just creates a hassle. The cops probably do have to show up at your door and investigate. And even if you're not doing anything wrong, it's a hassle.
Maybe they should go one step further with that app and let the policeman see the FPV coming out of your drone, so they can tell the person, no, he's not spying at you at all. He's
let's not even go there.
Let's
not even go there, man.
Yeah, Michael Wright says, how can local authorities create fines from FAA federal violations? Yeah, they really can't. But there is one way that they can stop people from using drones is they can have drone ordinances in the town that literally just, ban you from launching. That they do have.
That's what my neighbor town does. They just ban you from launching on the town's property. I mean, they don't control the air, but they can control your launch point in their city.
That's right, and then they
can show up
right, and then they can. If you are in city limits, they can block you from launching in your own backyard. That's right, and they can show up to your house and write you a ticket for that because you're.
And then they'll still want to get property taxes at the end of the year. Let me guess.
But I guess then you're legally not supposed to be flying there anyway.
Well, does that mean the mayor gets to come in and sleep with my wife too? I don't think so.
Overall, though, Michael, right? I agree with you. Local authorities. This is not going to be some gold landmine for police departments to go and start finding people, making a lot of money from it. I don't see what the big incentive is for them to.
But I thought there was something written into this. The final rule that said that basically the FAA could instill power upon local authorities to investigate and carry out their fines and everything.
But who would? I did see that it expanded it, but I don't know the specifics of that. Does that mean that the police can now write you a ticket and then you have to appear in court in the area or something?
That's what I'm beginning.
And pay a fine to who? Does the fine go to the FAA? Or, if it does go to the FAA, then what does the police department get?
Well, that goes back to this being an incomplete document again.
Right. Yeah. I don't see how that's going to work.
Well,
if you have an ordinance in that town or that area, then the fine would be related to that. I don't see. Maybe they could write a ticket that you would have to deal with the FAA. I don't know. Doesn't make any sense.
I would prefer that, John, because if your local policeman's writing you a ticket, kind of like a speeding ticket, so he shows up on site, you're doing something with the wrong drone. You're real nice to him. You sweet talk him. You call him officer 100 times, and he drops it to the lowest thing he can give you the ticket for.
That Danny? What's Danny? Danny? We haven't seen Danny in a while. Hey, Danny.
So Michael Wright just made an interesting comment. The state of Texas passed legislation making any local or county government laws concerning takeoff of public property null and void. See, that's great, and more states should follow that because these towns and cities that are passing these ordinances are really out of control. And we especially see it with, not just within the cities themselves. Parks are literally banning you from being able to take off, and that's really ridiculous. It's like a workaround, right? To just ban drones, ban someone's right to enjoy flying a drone.
So wait a minute. What's Sean saying? Authorized agent, like I said above. There are public safety companies doing this work in the UK already. They're coming to the US for remote ID.
Yeah, he's talking about companies that are designing equipment to detect drone signals and basically take control of them, which technically right now is illegal in the U.S. The only people that could do that are the FAA or the Department of Defense.
Floyd Motes is saying that, I think we might all be surprised when the final app comes out and how it's used. There's much panic about it now without seeing how it will actually work. Well, I would say that the panic is warranted about all of this because of the language. Some of this language is not good, and if it is not at least challenged, then they absolutely will do what they want. So I think at least being cautious about it at minimum is something we should all do. Some of the language is very, very not good.
So he's saying not take control, track and report.
Okay. Okay.
Because I do know there are some out there that are like, there's been some people that I've read about created the jammers that basically break the link. And, if you got a camera drone, most of the time it'll just return to home. But those jammers that these companies are coming out with are highly illegal in the U.S.
Yes, that's true. This slide that says, I don't know one police officer is going to stop and ask when you're standing there, I guess, minding your own business. Yeah, listen, I think most law enforcement officers are not against drones, especially someone just flying a drone, minding their own business. That's true. Where it's going to be a problem is, again, somebody's going to call it in, and they're going to have to follow up on it, and that's where it's going to be a pain in the ass.
And it depends on what kind of a day they had up to that point.
That's the other thing too, right? If they're having a bad day,
oh god,
they're gonna have a bad day.
Yeah, but just generally speaking, I don't think that the police are really out to get people on this. This is all just in a we're just talking about this on a, I guess, a more theoretical level. That police are gonna get.
And let's be clear, John. Like when most time when you're out flying a camera drone, and unless you have an older drone that has a gigantic remote to it, once you take the drone off and that drone gets kind of a couple hundred feet away from you, whatever. These small drones like the Mini and the Air, whatever, they're so quiet. You're standing there with this teeny remote in your hand. To anybody that doesn't really know, you're just somebody standing there maybe with your cell phone or something like that or whatever. They have no idea you're flying a drone unless they saw you take the thing off.
That's correct.
Once you got beyond the point where they can hear it and where they can see it, unless they're actually looking for it, like where it is, but somebody else walking up, they can't hear. They have no idea where to look to see it. So nobody knows what you're doing unless they actually see the drone take off and go out. I know with the app, they'll know it's there. But I mean, I'm saying people just that don't like drones or whatever, they don't even know the check, because they don't even. You're just somebody standing there with holding what looks like a big cell phone.
You know what I find the most interesting about all this, especially the wording that's in a lot of this stuff, is that you would think that the way they word this, you would think that we have a drone security crisis on our hands.
Oh my God!
It's in, drones is one of the safest forms of vehicles out there. I mean, compared to anything else. And
Exactly.
if you want to talk about safety incidents per how numbers and who's flying them, it's one of the safest things out there. So I'm kind of confused why there's such this. They're really coming down on this and using this verbiage like it's a national security issue.
Yeah, in fact, they mentioned safety tons of times. They mentioned safety tons of times in the other document. Let's see how many times, if I can find it in here.
They never showed us that risk assessment document.
No, they never did.
Safety.
I don't think they ever made one.
They never did. We knew they even called. We even called them out on it. We're like, they're never going to do it.
And you know what? I understand. Floyd Motes is saying here that the whole document is open-ended and there's a lot of time for changes. You have to start somewhere. I understand that, but this seems kind of stupid that this is the final rule, but there's going to be all these changes. Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one, Johnny. That's a good one. No, I got socks.
I think you're going to jail, buddy. You're going to jail.
Not enough legs, man. Not near enough legs showing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I'm all business up here, and yeah. I mean, look, I don't like the idea of a final document that is already a mess. Let's and speaking of that, let's talk about this next bit here, right?
Check this out.
Well, I think all this stuff can be just leave it to the delivery drones. It had nothing to do with us.
Yeah, exactly, man. But they don't need to take over our skies.
Yeah.
Here, let's go over this now that it's here's another contradictory thing in this document, right? And this is what's just driving people crazy. This thing probably shouldn't have been even published yet.
Danny's got a good point. Look what Danny said.
We should call the cops on every legal drone flight, and we perform it. In a couple of weeks, we'll have the police complaining on remote ID. There you go.
They'll be like, we're swamped. We can't do anything. There's so many rogue drones out here.
In some ways, the towers were kind of like that with the calls about I'm flying a drone, right?
Yeah.
Like, you talked about how you call every time, and then you kind of got the tower people to say,
he just said, look, if you're only going to fly 200 feet and you're only going to do the specific time, don't call me anymore.
Yeah,
they don't call me anymore.
They didn't want to be bothered.
I think they just would have had a much more better experience and better all the way around if they just elaborated on the Lance system.
I agree. There was nothing wrong with the Lance system.
I thought like it worked great. It worked great.
It does. It works. It works really well. Works really, really well. It's unfortunate that they decided to go out.
Sean,
what's up, Sean?
Sean, the Oz man.
The Ozman Dronus.
So you should get into. I have to leave here shortly, but you should get into who is now on that board on the advisory committee.
And something else I wanted that I have always talked about how asinine and stupid drone delivery was, and how was it going to take off, and then it dawned on me. It's going to start out as a gimmick for the rich and famous. They're going to have the drone portals built onto their homes. They're going to have the pizza deliveries and whatnot to show off to all their friends. Oh, no, you want a 12-pack of beer? I have it blown in by drone. Hang on. And that's what's going to screw us, because that's going to be how it starts. They're going to charge a premium for it. They're all going to pay for it. And then it'll trickle down, and eventually they'll get economical drone delivery for people like us.
All right, so I want to get into what Ethan's talking about, but real quick, we're going to go to this document again, just real quick here about home-built drones, just some more fun, contradictory stuff here. So they decided to define what a home-built drone was, or amateur-built aircraft. The rule finalizes the definition of home-built unmanned aircraft as unmanned aircraft that an individual built solely for education or recreation. Now, that is really boneheaded, because it means that if I build this, right, and I want to fly something commercially or do any kind of commercial activity with it, like chase cars, or do a shoot somewhere, or a Cinewhoop, for example. You build a Cinewhoop, right, and you did that for fun, but now you want to use it for commercial purposes. Kind of sounds like you can't do that, because solely
and there's actually in the movie industry, there's a lot of cinema drones that are technically home built too.
Exactly. So even they're getting screwed by that wording. Now,
did you see what Sean said here?
The first major drone delivery crash will put them back many, many years, the same as Tesla and their auto drive. Yes, I agree.
Well, the thing about it is we've all discussed it. We think that there's going to be some exemptions in there for them for this. We expect it.
But people will still be outraged if a drone crashes. And let's say these are big drones. These are big drones.
Yeah,
if one of them falls and hits somebody in the head, they could probably die. I mean, these are not little Mavics and all that kind of thing. So,
look, Sean's starting it now.
Me for the DAC. I'm not getting on the DAC anytime soon.
Mini 2 Killer, what's up, Sean Oz?
Mini 2 Killer. So let me just jump in here and show you guys the contradictory crap in this document. So let's go to one of the. We were on the home built, right? So home built, again, to recap, should be built. A home built aircraft is one that's solely built for education or recreation. Now we go to a comment, a response to one of the comments from the FAA. The FAA adopts the requirement that the unmanned aircraft be built for education or recreation of the builder as proposed. The FAA declines to add operating restrictions on the use of home-built aircraft, unmanned aircraft, finding that existing operating rules are sufficient to ensure safety. For example, when a home-built aircraft is flown under Part 107, it is restricted in being able to fly repeat. Okay, so that's interesting, right? They just said that when a home-built aircraft, it's flown under Part 107 or for a Part 107 flight. So how does that work with being solely built for recreational purposes?
Explain this. Yes, we still have the 400 feet.
Yeah. So, yes, we still have the 400 feet. Yes. So very interesting. And they're very specific here. They talk about a home-built aircraft being flown recreationally, and they talk about the home-built aircraft being flown under Part 107. So very, very interesting. Again, that's a contradiction that's going to have to be addressed. Luckily, it looks like, based on that comment response, their intention was not to restrict the home-built drones from being able to be flown commercially under Part 107, should the builder use it. But again, that's a huge oversight, I think, in just the wording. This just shouldn't have been published until more work was done with it. That's how I feel.
Okay, and a lot of people are talking about, we're overreacting. The whole point is the last time we waited to the last minute, they shoved remote ID down our throat. This is an incomplete document that is no means done, and there's a lot of loopholes in it, a lot of craziness in it that needs to be worked out. So yes, we need to jump on it now. And we need to bring out all the flaws now, so that before the 3 years gets up here and it's shoved down our throats again, we can point out all the loopholes in it and all the stuff that we're going to walk through in order to keep flying. And so now is better than later.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, remember what was it, a year and a half, 2 years ago, when they were rolling out Lance? There was a good 4 to 6 months there where hobbyists had no way to get clearance to fly in control airspace.
That's true.
I didn't fly at all. I did not fly. Remember?
Bill did not fly at all because, until it was active.
Yep.
I even came on and was like, it's active. I can do it now.
Yep.
Ethan, you getting ready to bail on us?
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, that's cool. Great. I figured. Go ahead.
Great conversation tonight, and we'll have to pick up again. I have to I'll keep on watching. But definitely great to see everybody tonight, and hope everybody had a happy New Year and good holidays. And look forward to seeing you guys in a few weeks. So have a good night, guys.
Good night.
Yeah.
So Sam Burns has a good question. Will we have to have 107 to be able to post our FPV videos? If it's on social media or it's monetized or it's in furtherance of business, apparently yes.
And furtherance of a business is so damn vague.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could talk about that all day. I'm not even going to get into that because that's a whole other thing when it comes to commercial use and all that crap. That's a whole other ball game. But generally, yes, from what we understand so far, if you are posting to YouTube and it's monetized, at the very least, you're supposed to have your 107. Sean Oz, yes, I did see Bartle's video today, and he actually raised a couple of these points in the video. It looked like Dave Messina from the FPV Freedom Coalition was optimistic about getting some of this clarified, but I believe at this time, still none of it has been, or at least the stuff about the home built hasn't been clarified yet, and the must maintain or see the aircraft at all times. I believe those two things have not been clarified yet. So, I want to see it clarified. I want to see it updated and fixed.
Wait a minute. What now? So if we didn't have so many pilots that think rules don't apply to them, we wouldn't see drastic restrictions. Sean was pointing out to us earlier that he doesn't, and it makes sense that the insurance companies that are causing these strict restrictions. Sure. And as a trickle down effect, because they're wanting to put such strict restrictions on the beyond line of sight delivery drones, it's trickling down to our hobby drones as well. Because, they're saying, okay, well, we're not going to have these, paying insurance on these Amazon drones if I got to worry about a hobbyist drone that can take it out in no time at all, and I still got to pay Amazon back all that money for their drone. That's what he's saying is the issue, is that insurance companies are saying they won't allow these drones to fly in the sky until they can cut down on crash factors, I guess. Does that make sense? So that's why it's trickling down to us.
Right.
Big business and their need for the skies is leaning on us. And if it weren't for us in the first place, delivering through these, catch systems or drop systems, they never would have came up with the idea. So there's no ingenuity or no initiative from these corporate leaders on their point. But now they want to they're like, oh, well, thank you. Well, we'll take over from here. Get the hell out of the way. No, it's not happening.
Sam Burns just asked a great question. Do you think RTF FPV will have the remote ID? Yes, because in 18 months, any drone manufacturer is supposed to ship their drone with remote ID on it. If it's a pre-built, they've got to ship it with it. So, yes, I believe Team Black Sheep was even talking about how they're going to have to do some work on the Oblivion when that comes out so that they can.
Well, how in the hell are they going to do it in 18 months when we don't even have an approved unit yet?
That's true, too. I've thought about that. Maybe that timeline could be extended because asking companies to come up with all of this in 18 months, I kind of find that a little unrealistic. So I guess we'll see what happens. I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, okay. I was just like, we're going to go from prototype to final product in 18 months.
Yeah, Mr. Flop, my Flying Eyes has a question. How are they going to enforce broadcasting the data through the app? What about the drones which don't need to connect to satellites? Okay. For example, if you have an FPV drone like mine that I don't need to connect to a satellite or whatever to fly it, I'm going to need to run a GPS on here now. Yeah. I'm going to need a transmission module. I will be running a GPS because that's the only way for you to comply with the remote ID requirements. You have to have a GPS. And here's an example, I guess, of how it could be done. Like this is a GPS module. We can attach these to our FPV drones right now if we want to and run it. So something like this would have to be on this drone. this is an example of like a little transmitter. So I envision the device being very similar to something like this, where you would probably have maybe an all-in-one GPS and transmitter. It would probably be very similar to something like this for us to attach externally. But yeah, you'd have to run it. You have to run it. If you don't have GPS, you will. Let's see. And how are they going to enforce the broadcasting of the data? Well, I guess if you're flying and there's for home built, I guess if you want to be compliant with the law, that's what you got to do. They really lost a lot of control over this when they decided to say, "Hey, you guys can build your own drones. You can attach a module." Right? Originally, they wanted to control the entire drone market. They didn't want us to be able to fly the home-built stuff anywhere except for approved fields, and they wanted the manufacturers to all have to comply and have remote ID, which was pretty much going to ensure that they surveyed everything. And, off-the-shelf drones are probably not going to be able to just turn off remote ID. But because of that,
the recurrent test is going to be out in 60 days, or the initial test?
I thought the recurrent test should be out in 60 days.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my understanding too, right? So if you have a Part 107 and you need to renew it, there you go. Sam Burns, keep your quad in line of sight by having a spotter. That is the only legal way to fly FPV.
But not after 30 months, though, right?
Well, according to if we take this document at face value, yeah, they're saying that a spotter would not allow you to be compliant with a remote ID module. So, yeah.
So for now, you can legally fly FPV with a spotter. Right. But in 30 months, you can't at all.
Well, John, could you fly it then with those? I forget the name of them, those goggles that, like you can see all the way through what's really in front of you, but also they have small monitors in them to see what the drone's seeing.
Ron, that's a good question. I would err on the side of caution and say no. I think that if you're looking, if you're looking at the FPV screen to fly, then even if you can see through it, I don't see how that would be legal. There's actually an argument to be made that, if you're going to be looking down at your tablet screen for an extended period of time, I believe, technically speaking, you should have a spotter watching that drone while you're looking down at that screen.
Okay, so Sean's saying FPV with a module and a spotter would be legal.
I hope so, because there is language in this document that says otherwise.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying.
If that's why we're doing this on that, I would love to hear it, because that is a huge problem at the moment.
Yeah, because everybody else that's read through remote ID is seeing what John's seeing, and we're talking from Freedom Cup, from Coalition, and everything.
I'll pull it up again because I did hear that they're optimistic about that being clarified, but again, it hasn't been officially clarified as of yet. Let me pull this. It's on page 10. It's like right in the very beginning. A lot of people have been extremely concerned about this, right? Here, let's go over number 10. This is a huge problem. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know why. Remote ID module. Where is it?
Just everybody bring your Stu pilot.
Yeah, Stu.
Stu's available for hire.
Yeah.
In this document, it's not page 10.
Yeah, I mean, just off the top of your head.
Here, I'll pull it up.
Mike needs
I don't know why I can't find it.
Mike needs to print him a T-shirt, Ron. Next time you talk to him, you need to tell him, I'm with Stu. Have a finger pointing off to somebody in space.
That would be a good team.
Yep, I'm with Stu.
And somebody's going to say, well, who's Stu?
Oh, God.
Yeah, he's my FPV pilot, man.
Find the Chris
He's
can't.
my 107 pilot.
And he's my spotter, too.
Yeah, he's my spotter, too. He's my all-around drone dude.
How many FPV pilots would you say fly with a spotter regularly?
All of them.
I think, more than
you
all
think.
of them.
Yeah, more than
100% of the time. Good.
Because they all fly in groups, and you've got like 7 or 8 people, and you can't run on that many radio frequencies. So you got maybe 3 pilots in the air, and the other 3 are watching.
There you go.
So it's just the way it works.
You're triple legal then.
This is killing me because I just brought it. Oh, here it is. Remote identification broadcast modules. I don't know why my control find not putting this up. Okay.
Sean missed it. He wants to see it.
Yeah, so we're going back to this. So this is the section about remote identification broadcast modules. This is what we'll be able to attach to our home built and the like to be able to fly. Now, in the bullet points here, persons can operate an unmanned aircraft equipped with a remote identification broadcast module only if, number 5, the person manipulating the flight controls of the unmanned aircraft system must be able to see the unmanned aircraft at all times throughout the operation.
Yeah, that pretty much shoots down it's legal with a spotter.
Yeah, that's hyper specific that the person manipulating the controls must be able to see the aircraft. Now, what does see mean with respect to line of sight? A lot of people are reading that and they're very concerned about that language because we know that to qualify for visual line of sight with FPV, you have to have a spotter. And this makes it sound like a spotter would be a no-go. So we definitely need some clarification on this one. It's not good.
Like you said, it's hyper specific, man.
Yeah, it's very, very specific.
I mean, the only thing they left out was the guy with his fingers on the gimbal.
Yeah, so I would love to know what Sean has to say about that. Maybe he's got some info because I would love to be I would love to be more relieved on this section. I did see discussions regarding it, and I've heard that the FAA's intentions were not to ban FPV, but until this is clarified and modified, we will need to see.
Their intention is not to ban FPV, but their intention is not to let FPV flyers use goggles, which is kind of the same thing, right?
Yeah, I mean,
nobody wants an FPV drone line of sight, right?
Oh, let's not kid ourselves. They don't want hobby pilots in the air, period.
Yeah, I mean, I really would want this.
They're
I think you will see that means the spotter. See the under line of sight definition can mean spotter. The person on the controls is intended to keep responsibility with the pilot. See, I could bite with that, but I would want that still to be changed because the way it's written is still not good.
The way it's written does not say that at all, Sean.
No, it's
very
not.
correct.
For legal reasons, I would like to see that changed. It's very specific. It says the person manipulating the flight controls. And when this first came out, the FPV Freedom Coalition was very concerned about it. A lot of people were this language was very concerning to a lot of people. Hopefully it means what Sean is saying it means. And if it is, then that's great. But I think it should be clarified.
Yeah, well, it's very clarified. It basically, there is no, I mean, a lawyer would salivate on this.
Yeah, I mean,
so
right.
Defined.
Under line of sight could mean spotter, but again, the person manipulating the flight controls.
But it says see the unmanned aircraft at all. It doesn't say line of sight. It says see the unmanned aircraft at all times.
And if your visual observer can be the one to see that for you, then he's saying
it's being specific. It's saying whoever's got it in their hands and manipulating the sticks has to see. It does not mention. There's no gray area. There's no insert. There's no way to legalese a spotter in there. There's none.
Listen, I don't like the language straight up. I don't like the language straight up.
I mean, I wish that there was, but like John said, that's so hyper specific.
Okay, so he's saying the rest of the document does. You cannot take only one point of the document alone. It must be considered. Okay, but I'm not the only one that's concerned about this. I'm not the only one that's brought concern about this. So, but I will admit, I'm no legal expert. I'm no, this is things 400 pages. I haven't read it. I haven't had time to read all of it. These are just the sections that struck out to me as being a problem. And again, I'm not the only one to have a problem with it. So I do hope that ends up being the case.
Okay, blunt fact right now. Do you think that it says what Sean's saying, or it's so specific that it says what you're thinking?
Can you repeat that?
Okay, where do you see it? Your personal viewpoint, what do you see? What you're reading right there on the screen. What is your viewpoint right now?
If we take that line for exactly what it says, without anything else, then of course it says that you cannot fly FPV. If we read that for what exactly it says.
And let me point out one other point to you that Sean brought up a good thing. He said you have to look at it as an entire document, right? But if there's different parts of this document that are negating other parts of the document, then the entire document itself is null and void. You can't have a rule like this written into part of it, and then 15 pages later contradict this rule, because you negate the entire thing. And that's what we're pointing out, is this is an incomplete document. There's areas that are written and typed out like this, that it looks like it's very professionally done and really well written in legal terms, because like John said, it was hyper specific. And then there's other areas that are so redundant, ridiculously written, it seems like they were written by an elementary school class. So it's obvious that more than one person went into creating this document, and they didn't look at it when it was done. The deadline, I'm thinking that the deadline was so close that they literally just turned it in, stapled it together, and said, this is it. Because like John specifically has spent a lot of time looking through all these pages and looking through the information. And there's no way to, even the government couldn't defend this document, because John's showing you right here where this says that, FPV flight is illegal, period, without a module, and you have to be able to see the drone. And then Sean's saying, no, you have to look further in the rest of the document because it says something completely different. So basically the entire document is a contradiction of itself. Right? Is that what we're agreeing on?
That's a fair assessment.
So how in the hell can they get any ruling out of this? I mean, because Sean's so confused. He's saying, no, part of the document later says that you can legally do this. But we saw specifically there, it says no.
Listen, if seeing an aircraft is defined in here, then okay. If they do, so which is interesting actually to bring up, because I do believe in this document, and this adds some confusion, so I will bring this up. Visual line of sight. I think they chose. Damn it! Of course, I can't find it.
Oh, Ron, check your Facebook Messenger when you get a chance. I hit you.
Okay.
All right, go for it. What are you looking for now?
I am trying to find, because there was something in this document regarding visual line of sight I wanted to bring up, which could be relevant to this. Oh, the definition of visual line of sight. So this is, okay. The FAA proposed that the term visual line of sight means the ability of a person manipulating the flight controls of the unmanned aircraft or a visual observer, if one is used, to see the unmanned aircraft throughout the entire flight with vision that is unaided by any device other than corrective lenses. The FAA recognized that this definition is consistent with how visual line of sight is used in the Part 107. Now, the FAA is saying that they will not be adopting the definition in this rule because the concept may apply differently to various persons and conditions depending on the type of operation. In addition, future rules such as rules providing for routine unmanned aircraft beyond visual line of sight operations may need to describe visual line of sight in a different manner or context to establish the difference between VLOS and BVLOS operations. So in the context of this subsection, if we go back to what they were saying about C, okay. What am I trying to say here? I'm actually catering to Sean's point here and saying that, okay, well, if we're not supposed to necessarily take visual line of sight per Part 107 with respect to how it's talked about in the final rule, then maybe that section doesn't mean what we think it does. I would still like to see it clarified further. I still would like to see that really, really solidly clarified further. It shouldn't. I just don't like things that are not super clear. That's just me.
Yeah, well, and the thing about it is the great thing for us is where this thing is so vague. It got so many holes in it. We're gonna be able to fly illegally till hell freezes up.
And Geeksvana has apparently years of boring legal training and reading so many documents like this. You know, I don't. I'm just reading this and trying to give you guys what I think about it. I have not made a video on my channel about this. Normally, I would by now, but I have not done that because I don't even feel like I have a true grasp on this, and I've waited to see how things evolve. I want to see if maybe in the next week we get a clarification on some of this stuff, like home built solely or not. Will maybe the FAA will come and say, "Oh yeah, we want to clarify this section, and we actually meant this, but we wrote this, and we'll add an addendum to it." You know, there's always that possibility of it being clarified. Well, so I am very cautious about any videos that I want to make on the subject because I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to make a video like I know what the hell I'm talking about and be wrong. This is just what I've gathered.
Wait.
What do you think it is?
99% of the people have the wrong idea about the definition of line of sight. It doesn't mean what most people think it does.
Oh God! I should get Doc Murdoch should get up in here because I think he would have a problem with that. I've been going back and forth with him talking about this stuff too, and you know he's got his pilot's license, so he's really used to reading into all this stuff, and we've been having a really great discussion.
All right, then I got an idea.
Doc Murdoch actually has a much more grim outlook on all this than I think we do. Just
kind of like X-Jet does.
Oh yeah, he's
kind of like Bruce does.
He has a very dim outlook on all of this, reading into some of this language. So yeah, maybe we got to get him on the show at some point.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. Since Sean is so active, if he's willing, and you know and we can get Ethan back again, maybe the first of next month, because we could give it a whole month to mull over and duel again, and maybe the beginning of next month we'll have a return to remote ID means for you, and we'll get Sean on with us, and we'll do another deep dive into it. Because I got a feeling we're gonna have to do a lot of these.
That would be great, yeah. And that'll give some time to go by to see if any of this gets clarified further. Like I said, some of the stuff I've talked about tonight, we already know that people have reached out to the FAA, like the FPV Freedom Coalition, to try to get a more solid response about what exactly that means. Oh, man. Slide Dad was busting my balls all night every time I didn't know a little something, and now he's fine to throw me under the bus.
Hey, I'm just clicking buttons, man.
Yeah, maybe we should get X-Jet on here, Coast. I think he would
love. Wait! He could actually bring on a U.S. aviation lawyer. Hey, we're set, man. There you go, right there. We're rocking here. That would be perfect.
Seriously, that would be wonderful.
That would be fantastic.
Do we have the money to afford a U.S. aviation lawyer, Bill?
Huh?
Do we have the money to afford a U.S. aviation lawyer?
That's on his tab. He said he was bringing them. See,
okay.
It's written right down here, and I'm hoping we got the right legalese.
Yeah, I mean, look, these documents are a huge maze, right? And they're not really made for the common person to be able to understand them. So we're all playing, lawyer here, going through these documents. So I understand what Sean is saying.
Good night, Marcus.
Good night, Marcus.
Good night.
Yeah, John. I got my law degree out of a gumball machine or.
Right, and I got mine on Wikipedia, so
I came out of Cracker Jacks.
Good luck with your beauty sleep, Marcus.
Yeah, I mean, so I understand that these documents often need to be read with in the context of what the individual things mean. when they're referenced. So I totally understand that. Like that you can't necessarily just take a sentence and ignore any of the definitions that they may have made. I just don't see any clear definitions that go with what I mentioned. And there shouldn't be a contradictory comment response about the home built stuff while also defining it. Like this, some of this stuff just needs to be resolved. Hopefully it will be. Hopefully it will be.
Well, that's all fantastic. And I wanted to give the announcement now, since Sean's confirmed as well, that February 3rd, we will be doing what remote ID means for you too, with an aviation lawyer and none other than Sean Hickey, Mr. Geeks Vonna himself. And I'm kind of, as you can tell, I'm kind of winding things down because people need to do some other things around their house and stuff.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to kind of give a prerequisite into or pre-lead into next week's show, where we're going to start off with the Remote Pilot 107 training, and Ron's going to be our professor, and we're all going to be backing him up. And we're kind of going to go off of the Remote Pilot 101 synopsis, kind of. So we're going to try to do the initial quiz for the first section ourselves, and then we will discuss what's in the quiz with you guys next week and what the correct answers were. And if we had a wrong answer, maybe we'll explain to you how we came to that wrong answer as well. So with that being said, I want to pass it around the room and tell all my good friends tonight that we're very grateful for having them in the room tonight, and gracious and fantastic to have Ethan back. And I wanted to also say that we will have Gary get back sometime in the future. But Gary is spending time with his family right now because they're going through some health issues and stuff. But please keep Gary and his parents in your prayers. We need to get some healing vibes out to him and his family and all of them, so that he can get back with us and do what he loves, talking about drones and stuff with us. So first off, I'm going to throw it over to my right hand. I guess that makes Ron my left hand. I'm going to go over to John Cuppi.
Guys, it's been a real great discussion tonight. I learned a lot from the chat. I thought we had some great questions and comments, and we're going to definitely do this again and go over it. And like I said, thank you guys all for staying here. It was really, really, really great. Really good to do this, just to stay informed and talk. Good discussion. Good discussion, guys, and thanks. I'm going to go ahead and pass it now to Ron Brown.
Thank you, John, and thanks for doing a great show tonight, John. A lot of great information out there, and I want to give a special shout out to Geeks Vonna for contributing almost as much contributing more to the chat than I did on the live show. He was a big help tonight, and everybody out in the chat. That everybody had a lot of great comments and questions, and like you always do. And it was great to have Chris Hope on with us tonight. I saw Chris on Kelly's video flying FPV, John. He was flying digital FPV. You may have another converter there.
Sounds great, Ron.
So we'll go back next week with that Remote Pilot 101 kind of a preview of the training course. It's going to be a good night, and I'm going to throw this over our new digital FPV pilot, Chris Hope.
It's digital, all right. It's expensive, and I can't get it right yet. We want to thank you guys in chat. Without y'all, this wouldn't be near as fun as it is. We much obliged. And Bill, thanks for having me on, buddy. I appreciate it. John, you did a good job breaking it down, kind of making it where an old boy could understand it a little bit better. I appreciate it, man. And I'll kick it back over to Mr. Bill.
All right. Now, I'm very grateful for having you as an addition on our crew this season. You're going to be a good part of it. In case people haven't noticed, I always try to keep at least 2 viewpoints from both sides of the fence on this show. If y'all have not figured that out in the previous times, then you'll notice that more, because like Ethan and Chris seem to have similar beliefs, and Ron and John and I all have similar beliefs. But I always try to keep those 2 viewpoints on here, because if you've noticed, we always get along. So the damn country can do the same thing. We don't bicker and bitch against each other. We all get along fine. You know why? Because we all love drones.
That's true. I even got a drone on my shirt. Over here.
Oh,
there you go.
All right, guys. We hope to see y'all back next week. Like I said, we're going to start out with our FPV training with Professor Ron Brown, and we will see you next week. Live long and prosper.